John.
Hey, Jason. Good. How are you? Sounds like we can hear you just fine. So
Good.
you're all set to share on your end for this. Does that work for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have the PDF ready, so I'll double check that I have the ability. It says host disabled, participant screen sharing.
It should be good now.
Okay.
Okay. It's like we have Terry on from our side. Have you heard from Marita, Terry?
I just saw her pop in.
Okay, perfect.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome.
Marita. Hey, Catherine. How are you?
Good. Hi, Jason. Hi, Michael.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
That's good to see some familiar faces. Hey, Casey.
Hey.
We have Andre joining us. Good. How are you, Andre?
Good. How you doing, Jason?
Yeah, doing well. It's been a while.
Yes, it has.
And good afternoon, everybody. John, how do we look on attendance so far? Do we need to wait a couple more minutes or?
We might just give it one more minute, if that's all right. I think we're waiting on a couple more people here. All right, Josh, why don't you start the preamble here, and then we can, if people jump on still in the last couple minutes, we can shift them into the room.
So now,
All right, awesome. So I'm in an office with a lot of noise, so I'm going to try to do the best I can. Anyway, good afternoon. I'm Josh Sun, along with John Law, and we are both with the Department of Planning and Development. Welcome to the August 10th, 2022 meeting of the Committee on Design. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded live streamed to DPD's YouTube page. To our esteemed committee, thank you for volunteering your time to be a part of this advisory group. To the members of the public who are joining us, what you will see today and at future Committee on Design meetings are projects currently under review by DPD staff. The committee is a voluntary advisory body of design professionals that provide their expertise on design issues. This committee is not a substitute for Plan Commission, as it is not a forum for public debate, nor is the advice of the committee legally binding. It is the hope that today's discourse will lead to recommendations that will elevate the design excellence of the city of Chicago. These recommendations will be forwarded to DPD staff for consideration as they review these projects for Plan Commission and subsequent approvals. I will now continue on to roll call. Please state present or here if you are in attendance. Catherine Baker.
Here.
Jackie Koo.
Here.
Andre Brumfeld.
Here.
Philip Enquist. Who is
Excused.
okay. Jeannie Gang.
Here.
Amanda Williams. Eleanor Gorski. Casey Jones.
Here.
Maria Villalobos.
Present.
Leon Walker.
So they do not own these parcels. But they
And
are.
that's it.
When-
Before we get to the agenda, to members of the public, you are welcome to begin dropping comments and questions into the Q&A box. Committee members are invited to review this information during and after each presentation and incorporate the comments into the discussion. We will not be reviewing questions or comments from the public individually. To the applicant teams, please clearly state your name and your relation to the project prior to speaking. You have 20 minutes to present your proposal. Committee members, please hold your comments and questions until after each presentation. We will now move to the first item on the agenda. So as I go over the description, feel free to pull it up and share your screen, whoever is in charge of that. So the first item on the agenda is Bella Noir, located in the 4th Ward. Bella Noir is a mixed-use project located in the 47th Street and Cottage Grove Invest Southwest corridor. The project intends to redevelop a vacant block on East 47th Street between South St. Lawrence Avenue and South Champlain Avenue. It will be located less than half a mile from the 47th Green Line station and less than a quarter mile from South Cottage Grove Avenue. Will benefit from the ETOD Connected Communities Ordinance. The building will contain ground floor commercial, 26 residential units for veterans, and 40 parking spaces. The project will also provide a unique opportunity for farm-to-table dining and education in concert with a farm outside the city and grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Any committee members that are associated with this project, please recuse yourself at this time and for the duration of the review for this project. Please proceed with the presentation and state your name prior to speaking. Thank you.
Yes, hi, everybody. My name is Jason Nuttleman, founding principal of Seek Design and Architecture, and we are extremely excited to be able to present this fantastic project to the Committee on Design. I'm also joined by team members Marita Holmes, Terry Haymaker, and Diedrich Holmes from the development side of the team. So I will let Marita share a little bit about the vision, mission, and the drive behind the idea of this project. And then I will take it from there and talk through some of the explorations and the design processes that we've gone through. So Marita, if you want to talk a little bit about the project vision.
Sure. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marita Holmes, and I am the CEO of Bella Noir. Our mission and goal for this project is one, because I live in the community, and years ago, I learned after buying my house maybe 2 years ago in this community that my parents, when they migrated from the South, they actually live, if I'm sitting in my kitchen, I can see the house where they moved into. It still stands there all these years later. Not knowing that, and I feel like I'm home now, I feel really connected to the community. Our goal is to reestablish some of the vibe and the presence that was there back when my parents moved up here. So I currently live at the end of the block of where this site is going up. And Jason, you can go to the next one. So some of the main mission is to eliminate community inequities by closing the gaps and disparities. So this is a wellness hub. And in this hub, we'll have fitness, we'll have STEM after school programming, we'll have arts. And from our, as he mentioned before, we do have a farm in Ogle County, which is an hour and 15 minutes outside the city. So we'll do farm to table programs. We'll do our equine therapy programs. We'll even take some of our students from our inner city site out to the farm to just do retreats or even to learn about farming and agribusiness. Then also in this site, we'll have local dining. So we're trying to bring a different variety of food and sit down restaurants to the community. And then the last piece of what we have for residential will be for housing for veterans. And so we're really happy and proud about that because in my family are a lot of veterans. And I've also noticed that that's kind of a population that's sometimes overlooked. So through the University of Chicago, we'll be providing housing for veterans.
Yeah, thanks, Marita. So from that high level overview, you can tell that this project has a deep meaning and really a deep seated root into the community and what it's trying to do, because it's more than a building. It's really an extension of Marita's vision and mission and putting a stake into the community and saying that we will be serving everyone that comes to this building well, right? And the extension from 47th Street all the way to the farm and how that dialogue works, we'll get into a little bit more, but it's just a fascinating setup of program and components. So as we locate this project within the city, right, it's in the vibrant Bronzeville community that has that deep history. And it also has a lot of opportunity for investment right now. So we really view this as a catalytic project, especially on this portion of 47th Street, where there is currently a good amount of vacant property, right? So this really can start to be the heartbeat of this stretch of 47. This diagram starts to locate proximity to transit. As we know, Zoning Bureau just passed the ordinance that extends the transit served destination. So we are within that now. We're just slightly over 2,000 feet away from the 47th Green Line station. We also have the 47 bus along 47th Street and then the number 4 on Cottage Grove. So it's really well served location within the Bronzeville community. And then as we zoom in a little closer, right, how this starts to fill out, capture the corners and really create an urban destination that's surrounded by, there is some vacant land here, but we really can see this as driving, spurring development in this area. So we look at context around here, right? We have, some smaller 3 flats, we have some 1-story commercial, and then we have some 4-story residential that's like right here surrounding it. And then kind of on the west and to the northwest, there are the vacant lots that are kind of spurring from this. As we started to look at the massing of this project, right, there's a lot going on, right, with the different programs that we're trying to implement. So, there's the option 1, which is kind of the traditional stacking. You have the plinth of the 1-2-story commercial space, then you have the other office and nonprofit spaces, and then the residential on top of that. But that just started to feel really heavy, right? And made that block feel really, really long. And then the other option that we moved to was kind of that taking more of a pyramid approach, where it's like you have a central core, you carve away the corners and step back. But that didn't really feel like it was really capturing the urban edge and the environment and really setting up the future opportunities within this location. So the third option, which we call the 2-tower option, is really splitting those distinct programs of residential and office and commercial and fitness into 2 different towers that are going up from the 2-story plinth that we're creating. And that really creates kind of an interesting form that brings the wellness and the life and the green space into this project. So the building form is generated, right? These 2 towers that are split apart. Obviously, the city is a very rigid 90-degree street grid, right? So we had the idea of like, what if we rotate these 2 towers 45 degrees to break that, right? And then just by that nature, it creates this distinctive courtyard between the two vertical elements. And then with all of the different programming elements, we have a lot of entry points and entry nodes. So how you start to carve away and give some of those carved out areas back to the public space, right, at the pedestrian level. And then how you clad that into the, with the building materials, and then activate that with the green terraces as they step up from the pedestrian circulation. So then this is a quick overview of like the program, and I'll hang here for a second because I just think it's really important to talk thoroughly about the distinctive program elements. So first floor is commercial. So there's going to be food and beverage. There's going to be pharmacy, obviously the entries into the two different cores. And then we have at grade parking, 40 spaces that would be accessed off of the alley, hidden from the streetscape. So you wouldn't know that there is a parking lot underneath the building. And then as you move up to the second floor, I'll let Diedrich hit on this a little bit, but one of the amazing things here is that we're creating a full-size basketball court on the second floor, right? And we're locating that directly adjacent to the exterior wall. So there can be this dialogue and communication between the activity on the basketball court and the community. Can really be like the heartbeat of this building. And Diedrich, you want to touch on some of the partnerships and things that we're already exploring for this portion of the building?
We can't hear you, Diedrich, sorry.
Well, if he's not able to join, I can kind of talk high level. Diedrich is really connected in the sports world and really development of ideas and new concepts. And so he's connected with organizations like IMG Academy and even the Mamba Foundation, which is Kobe Bryant's foundation. So there's these early conversations of these partnerships that could really create this dialogue and really draw in, this aspect of the project. And then, as we move up the building, we have the medical office space on the floor above that, which Marita already has some partnerships in line there, and it's really focusing on the mental health side of the medical services. And then above that is the Lyric Foundation office. And Marita, do you want to touch on the operations of the Lyric Foundation there?
Sure. So most of our programming, we focus on STEM programs. So we're in that office space, we'll be developing a STEM lab so that all of the youth that come in can have hands-on experience. And above the office, we'll have some green space that he's going to show you later, where we'll do some of our farming and hands-on things that we don't do outside of at our farm location. We also do after-school programming. We will also touch on, we do have some veteran programs, and we do have some first responder programs. So we do a lot of different things to try and feed the need educational-wise and health-wise through our organization.
Yeah, that's great. And then on the east portion, which is the taller portion, the 6 stories, that's where we have the residential component that is associated with the University of Chicago's veterans program. So there's 26 units, 24 of those units will be dedicated to the veterans housing. And then 2 will be dedicated for the affordable housing, right? So these units are intentionally designed to be larger in scale and size, mostly 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, and even 2s and 3s that are larger. So a lot of them have extra spaces for families to grow and really live in the community, right? Because we know that is a desire and a need here in this part of the city. So high level building program, it's very intriguing, right? It sets up for a fantastic opportunity to design a very special building in this location. So just some precedent images, right? With the terracing, stepping that you see in 3 of these 4 images, and then how cladding a building and then doing these carve outs in a softer, more natural material can really create this dialogue and this interest in the execution of the design. So as we move to this, right, as an aerial view that's looking southeast back at the lake, you can see how these 2 towers are capturing the urban edge, right? And then there's in the knuckle in the middle, we give this plaza, that kind of breaks up that streetscape and provides opportunity for gathering and green space, etc. And then as we locate this in context of the surrounding neighborhood, there are some buildings that are scattered around that are at or higher than what this is currently proposed. But as mentioned before, this is really going to be a catalytic project that will then, kind of set the tone for the scale and the density that is really needed along 47th Street that was once a very vibrant commercial thoroughfare, right? And it will become that again very soon.
Hi, you have about 10 minutes left.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna start moving a little faster here. So another aerial view, right, that's from the other direction. And then this, places it back in the context of the city, the community with a skyline that is really close, right? So as you drop down to the pedestrian view, this corner is a pretty special corner because one, it's the basketball court that's on that second floor that you can see that activity happening there, but also the mural. That's a very intentional mural placement because it has deep meaning behind it. And Marita can talk to that for a moment.
It's a picture of my mother. She was a CPS school teacher, and she also gave back to the community. She did a lot of community work, so we wanted to pay homage to her. That's why we put her picture on the side of the building.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful picture. So we're excited about that location. And then as we swing around to the other side, where it's the residential, the 6 stories, day, dusk shot where the building really starts to come alive. And then as we elevate and place ourselves on the terrace, I think this is a pretty special view that really shows what those views will be like. And then it also helps create that dialogue within the building, right? So like as this is a 3rd floor residential terrace, you're looking down and you can see the basketball court and the fitness and all of the other activity that's happening on the more public facing amenities and terraces across the way. So I think it'll be set up a really nice dialogue as you elevate up the building. Zooming in a little closer to building materials, right? We're going with a corrugated black metal panel that's always in locations where it's facing the street, right? And that's responding to the name of the project, which is Bella Noor, which Bella, beautiful girl, Noor, black, right? So it's these two things coming together, right? We want to create this beautiful movement of material that's cladding it. And then whenever it breaks away off of the grid, it switches to the bronze material, obviously responding to the Bronzeville community and the namesake there. And then the railings, and then the residential decks would have a softer wood to break up that material, and then the glass storefront. The elevations, I'll just hit on this really fast. With the passage of the extended zoning, we can go up to 75 feet. Our building is at 72 feet, so we're slightly below the new approved height, building height for a B3-3 zoning. And then this is from the alley, so this is the backside of the building. And then this is looking the west or the east elevation, excuse me. And then here's the west elevation with the mural on the facade. So a site plan here, you can see, this is where we're creating a larger plaza that can really be activated in a lot of different ways. There is the farm that's an hour and 15 minutes away. So we're talking about farmers markets and exchange of food and goods and growing, right? So all of these things can really start to happen in these moments that are surrounding the building and kind of at a public streetscape scale. First floor, as I mentioned before, mostly restaurants, pharmacy, parking in the back. You elevate to the second floor, you have the full-size basketball court and potentially a half court as well, with all of the surrounding support functions that are needed for that. And then on the east portion, we switch over to the residential units. Elevating to the third floor, it's really mezzanine space that overlook the basketball courts, right? Which could really be a really interesting dynamic. Like you have a big event going on, people up there on the mezzanine watching the activities there. and then residential on the right side as well. Medical office, just under 10,000 square feet that takes up this portion of the 4th floor, and then moving up to the lyric foundation on the top floor, on the west portion of the 5th floor. And then you move up to the 6th floor, which is residential on the right. And then you look at the roof, you can see all the terracing, the stepping, the green space, the intentionality that we're creating with really making this a healthy, livable, enjoyable building that brings up really equitable like terracing, right? That is bringing public up and encouraging them into this building. So it's not like isolated or desperate from the streetscape. So looking at the building from a different perspective, right? We have the entry plazas, as mentioned before, that really are supporting the functions of the building, but also inviting the public into the spaces and really able to create beautiful areas for gathering. You know, this slide really starts to show how we view these terraces and all these spaces, right? They are not only for the people paying rent in the building, right? As Marita was mentioning, like on that top floor, there's going to be kids coming out of this building like continually, right? Throughout the day, throughout the weekend, right? And how they come to the building and then interact with the farm that's, you know, an hour and 15 minutes away to learn those life skills. There's just this amazing dialogue that's being created, right? And then, you know, there's these other terraces for yoga and for working out, and then the farmer's market as well. So you elevate, you know, raised terraces and the green space and the raised planters that really, you know, soften this building up, right, within the urban context. And then, you know, the idea of these green roofs and urban farming, right? So there's farming happening here, there's farming happening in the farm, the 120-acre farm, how both of those can work together and how you can really, with the youth that are going to be served here as well as at the farm, how they can really develop life skills and those things that are really needed, right? And teach holistic learning and holistic ideas, right? So this building is part of that bigger dialogue and that bigger identity of what we're really trying to do and what Marita's trying to do with her foundation. So again, what that looks like from the aerial, and then hopefully I made it within the 20 minutes.
Good, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep.
So committee members, please take a moment to review any comments received from the public, which it doesn't look like we have any. But the floor is now yours for comments and questions to the applicant. So yeah, we can begin.
Jason, hi, it's Jeannie. I would like to find out a little bit more. I like the way that the building is carved and responding to daylight and providing terraces and things like that. And so I just wanted to focus us down onto the ground level and the heights in relation to the adjacent buildings that are across on the alley. So if you go to the elevation of the see. I guess it would be the elevation. Yeah, those two elevations.
Yeah.
One thing that the 3D shows and the elevation is less so is that on this particular drawing, we know that the building cuts back in from the top down to the second floor level, which I think is a nice gesture for the building next door across from the alley. But one thing about that, the base there is quite high and it comes out much farther than, than the setback. If you go to the plan for a second. So yes, so here, go back. Is that the ground level there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Where the existing buildings are, and they have like a front yard setback. So what we are doing here on this lot is then kind of stepping back out because we're not I guess it's not required to have a front yard setback. So, and the height of that, where the mechanical is, I was just wondering if there is anything that could be done. I mean, overall, it's a beautiful project. I should say that first. I really, really like it, and I love the mixed uses in there. So I'm just going straight to the
Yeah, that's
to
good. Appreciate that.
so I meant to say that it's a great project and really very carefully thought out. And so congratulations on that first. And the materiality and the way that it's articulated very carefully is very sensitive in every aspect, and it'll be a great addition to the street and just a great energy generator with Marisha's program and all the different uses that you have planned there.
Yeah.
So having said that, I was just kind of like curious about this corner right there and there, like how it is to have a street full of front yards, and then it kind of dead ends into this side wall of the mechanical right there. Yeah.
Yep.
And I know it's probably something that every single block has to deal with, because you're going from front yards that face the north-south streets to the back of a commercial building. But I'm just wondering if there's maybe a better architectural way to handle that, or maybe set an example in that sense on that particular corners.
Yeah, I think that's Jeannie, thank you for the comments first of all. And then responding to this comment, it's a great point. You can see how, we've addressed the corners along 47th, obviously the mid block, but we've been sensitive to like break that down. So it's not we're defining and capturing that urban edge in that corner, but then we're disintegrating it, right? To highlight entry points and nodes. But yeah, I think when we got back to the alley, it was more of like, how do we get all the program in and the parking, right? But to your point, there could be a way we step this back. I mean, it's probably not as much as the front yard setback and the adjacent residential zone, but maybe there is a way we could step this back to create a planter or some green space or something that softens up that edge and transitions to that residential scale, right? One thing that I do think is kind of nice, right? Because we do have this setback. So we've been working with Omni and Michael to like work through these green roof areas. So there can be a softer edge to it too, up high. So it's just not like a very hard corner, right? So we were thinking about that, but maybe there's another step further of like actually shifting the building form slightly to address that.
Yeah, just to follow up, I think that's a great suggestion, because you already have this kind of language set up for how to deal with corners. It's an interesting approach to it, and maybe hopefully you wouldn't lose, much of your utility space that you need. But given that the context is, there is a lot of change. Sometimes there's no buildings there, sometimes there is. There's almost like really no back in a certain way on a Chicago building, even though we pretend that the sides are not seen, they're always seen.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
yeah, I think that would be a nice way to address that issue by using a technique that you already have employed.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great point.
Jason and Marita, this is Andre. I just want to commend you both. I do think that it's great to see a bold project like this happening, particularly on 47th Street, and hope that, it finds a way to take the step forward. And I do appreciate, how brave you were in terms of kind of stepping out of the context here and doing something different. But I do have a comment, and this is not to pick on the corner, but if these slides are actually perfect, these 2 or 3 slides, kind of coming at a different point from what Jeannie was saying, but really kind of focusing on the scale. What I really appreciate is that on the St. Lawrence elevation, you kind of step down, to those residential buildings south. you know, but on the other side on Champlain, even though I do appreciate you have that, once you get above the podium parking, you do have that what appears to be almost a 30-foot, you know, kind of setback, if you will, once you get to the residential. It does, you know, doesn't have that same level of sensitivity, even though we do have, you know, the space between the alley and, you know, the residential portion of the building. You know, it doesn't have the same sensitivity, you know, that you kind of took on the other side on St. Lawrence. And you know, was just wondering if that's something else that could be thought of, just in terms of kind of how you kind of respect the scale, you know, going back toward the residential.
Yeah, I agree, Andre.
Without disturbing the theme and the concept that you have overall.
Yeah, and you know, on St. Lawrence, you know, it's not residential, so we were able to like massage that setback in the way it moved a little bit more, right? To really create more green space and outdoor space for especially the Lyric Foundation up here, but also the medical office, so they could use that space as well. So that gave us a little bit more freedom to like step back and create that dialogue with the neighboring buildings. But yeah, in this elevation, it kind of shows it, like, you know, even though we're disintegrating this corner, right? So this elevation probably isn't fully true on like how hard it is, because, you know, we are disintegrating that and stepping that back. And maybe if I go to that rendering real fast, that might show it a little differently in perspective, right? So let me go back there. Oops, wrong way.
And Jason, as you're trying to get to the one view, you know, maybe, you know, all may be forgiven if there was, you know, or at least most of my concern may be alleviated if we, you know, could get that view coming from St. Lawrence, or I should say Champlain looking north, you know, seeing what that looks like at the eye level, you know, as you're actually those residents, you know, that I think that would go a long way to kind of, you know, maybe, you know, alleviate or take care of some concerns that I have, or maybe others may have in terms of scale.
For sure. Yeah, I think we can
Because
definitely
we can appreciate it from this view, right? You know,
Yeah.
but the ground level view, I think it would be good to see what it looks like coming up Champlain.
Yep.
Yeah. I am just one small refinement. I certainly echo Jeannie and Andre's comments. I think that the project is really very thoughtfully put together, and I think it's an exciting new kind of solution to the issue of dealing with a kind of full block site here in Chicago. I think the massing is very nice. The way it's sculpted is quite good. But one thing, you cited some pretty ambitious programming for that little triangular piece of space in the center of the building, right? The little plaza you're creating, and it really isn't much wider than a sidewalk by the time you take that kind of triangular landscape out. So I would either just acknowledge that it's going to be a nice kind of landscape respite in the middle of the block, or alternatively that you rely maybe on street trees to provide the green and make that a little bit more of a plaza where you could have outdoor dining, or, you know, occasional setup of one or two farmers market stalls or something like that. But it seems overly ambitious for the amount of space you have right now.
Yeah, Casey, I appreciate that comment. That's one thing as a team we've been working through is where to allocate more of that space, right? More of the farmers market, more of that kind of that connection with the farm, and how we connect those two while, you know, containing all of the program that this building needs, right? And so, you know, there's a moment there. You know, maybe there's a way it could like extend into the building. So it's like there's the outdoor dialogue and then portion coming in and out of the building. So I think there are some things that we're still working through on how to like really capture that connection from site to site, and how you know, that the urban farming and the rural farming can kind of congregate in one location, right? So, you know, there's a lot of space, outdoor space on it, and we want these terraces to be equitable, right? And really where there can be public gathering and there can be that activity, right? But we have to do that and work through that in the right way, so it's actually feasible to make happen. So
Yeah,
I think that's a great point. Yeah.
I mean, if you have the space within the building, the idea of an indoor farmer's market, you know, that could open up to the fresh air in the summer, would be fantastic, because then you could utilize it year round, right? Utilize that space year round.
Yeah.
Leon, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Jason and team, congratulations on a bold project here that is exciting and inspirational. I lived for 20 years not far from here on 48th Street, and went to the University of Chicago for 2 graduate programs, and was a lab school grad. So I know this area, you know, intimately. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the material choices in the corrugated panels and just how you arrived at that. Is because we don't see a lot of it in Chicago, being a brick town. But just if you could just tell me about it, and some issues, you know, from a maintenance and operational standpoint with the fasteners, because I know we've looked at it before in the past, and just wondering if you have any insights on that.
Yeah, Leon, that's a great question, right? And I think the idea of kind of like draping the outside of this building in something that wasn't so heavy was really appealing to us, because we did explore using like a dark brick, almost like a black brick, to clad it, and then like all these carve outs become a softer material. But there's something, because you know we're capturing the urban context, right? And what you experience is really what that, you know, what the main building mass material is. And so we wanted to use something that was a little bit lighter, and could play with like shadow and light a bit more, because you know this building is a lot about like controlling sunlight and bringing sunlight into spaces, right? So we wanted to use something that really would add a little bit more texture to the building and would evolve and change like daily, right? Every time if you go there at dusk, like we have in that one image, like it'll feel slightly different than it would if it's, you know, in the morning. And I think this type of material allows that to really happen, right? You know, there have been some very successful projects, I think, in the city that have used this corrugated metal really well. And your question about like execution and fasteners and the quality of the installation to make sure that it lasts, right? That's something that we're actively looking at, you know, different manufacturers. And you know, I guess at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that Powers and Sons is our general contractor that we're working with actively, right? And so that is a conversation that we're having as we're talking about building systems and exterior enclosure, how to do that well with the right systems, the right fasteners, the right installers. But you know, we've also tried to keep the metal panel coming to grade at a minimum, right? Because that's where the metal panel, especially the corrugation, can start to get compromised more easily when, you know, cars or people or bikes or whatever it is, like have access to like hitting it and then damaging it, and then it's harder to replace, right? So we do bring it down in moments, right? But mostly along 47th Street, it's glass, right? And then there's these kind of these pilasters that touch down. And then as we move around the building, we start to switch material to something that's a little bit more durable. So, you know, we're trying to elevate that material more, so it's not like, and it's not really going to be damaged, right? Or have some of those other issues that you can with the corrugated product. Does that?
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. And then the only other just sort of follow up there is that how much will the fasteners be visible? I mean, because, you know, we can't obviously hear this is a very, you know, sort of sleek, consistent, you know, look now, but are those fasteners something we've struggled with in the past? Just curious how to address that in a way that keeps it elegant like this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one thing with the fasteners is like the color is also very key, right? Because if you go with a lighter material, white, light gray, or something, or a brighter color, like those fasteners, they start to feel dirty and they start to like streak down the building potentially, right? But if we go with this color and the execution that we're proposing, like those types of elements aren't visible, right? Because they disappear in the nature of the color of the material. So I think that the color selection is also almost is as important as like the detailing of the metal.
Thank you.
Thanks. I see Maria's next.
Thank you. Morita and Jason, congratulations, and to you and to your team for an extraordinary project. It's especially emotional and important for the new generations to see role models celebrated in the public space and being part of the public space. So it's really beautiful how you're managing your corners in the kind of generous way the building receives the energy of the city. So just one idea on that, if you can go to the plans view, because that corners, you know, you had put so much kind of energy and emotion into it. Once we get to it, it's very, very simple. It's about just looking at the possibility of making that sidewalk, any of those will work, making that sidewalk a little bit more generous. You see how it gets on the top left, it gets a little narrow right there in the corner, and you try to chamfer to open a little more space there. If possible at all, to set back a little bit that wall right there to open up the sidewalk, especially because the city has these plans for the city, for the streetscape, for it to grow over time. So it'd be wonderful to get a more generous sidewalk on that side of the project. And again, congratulations on a beautifully drawn, fantastic process, very thoughtful, and we very much appreciate all the energy and commitment behind it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Maria. That's wonderful feedback. And yeah, your point here, it does tighten up, right? Because there's a bus stop right here. So that's why it tightens up on the sidewalk a little bit. And you know, we are creating this node here, but maybe there can be a connection, you know, to add a little, because there's no space for trees in the public way right here.
Exactly.
So maybe there's a way we could offer a little space, do something here. Just want to make sure, like, if we have these types of moments of potential landscaping or softening, that it's in an environment where something can grow, right? And actually provide that. So that's something that we can work with Michael on like how to kind of soften up these spaces and do it in a way that it really works, right? Because I think none of us like to see green ideas that don't come to fruition, and then it's just like empty space. So we want to make sure that we execute it and that it really does what we envision it to do.
That's right. Even 5 feet will allow you to, you know, open the sidewalk and then have trees there. It'll be extraordinary. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, perfect.
One quick comment, Jason, on the second floor residential, Are those units or is that program space? From the renderings, it looks like it's program space.
Yes. So this area, Catherine, is what
Yes.
you're talking about? Yeah.
Or facing the street, right?
Yeah. So these are residential units. Backing up, originally we were thinking the whole second floor to be fitness space. But then as we were walking through everything, right, it started to seem like we needed more units. And so we brought down residential units to the second floor. Here, there is, by having the parking below, right, there is a lot of beautiful green space here. And I think you're talking about like what it feels like along here with the residential units, right? Along the
Right, you have the transparency at the gym on the other side and the heights of those windows. And then from the renderings, it seemed like that continued on through, but
yeah,
I guess maybe, and you'll do that, look at a little bit closer. What does it mean if those are residential units and not a fitness center? And what does the glazing look like?
Yeah, exactly. I think that we can look at breaking that up by creating some like recessed decks like we start to do as we elevate, right? To try to give, not all units have outdoor space, but almost all residential units have access to outdoor space. So if we could potentially break that up to soften that up and create that residential context and feel that you're mentioning.
And that's great. I think more units is great, especially since you have so much program space next to your building that the veterans can use, hopefully. So I'm all for more units. So I like that. Thank you. And a great project too. So thank you all.
Of course.
I just wanted to chime in really quick with one comment. Phil Enquist was not able to attend in person today, but he did relay some comments and that I wanted to share with the team. First of all, he also echoes the compliments to the project holistically. But he did have one point of clarification or a question. Just given the complex geometry and the amount of great glazing that you have in the building, has the team considered or sort of put forward some notions of energy efficiency in the envelope and how you might approach that?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I mean, this building has a lot of exterior enclosure space, right? With terraces above, commercial space above other residents. So there's a lot of building enclosure space that we need to get right and detail and design appropriately. And Marita, like on every call, she reinforces that this building needs to be as sustainable as we can make it, right? And what our approach is like, let's design the massing and the holistic building so it is a sustainable project, right? And it is hitting all of those things that we need to do as professionals, right? To conserve energy and produce energy and all these other things. And we do that in like the core nature of the building design. And then if we have the opportunity to do solar panels, these other things, like we have the infrastructure there to do it. But going back to Phil's question about like the enclosure, those are things that we're actively working on, especially in communication with the engineer, on the systems and the envelope to make sure that this thing is as tight as it can be, right? So and when it comes to the extent of glazing, right, we're not being shy about glass because we want to bring as much daylight in as we can, but inherently there's the thing that we have to consider of like glass isn't as efficient as a mass wall or something else. So making sure that we have the U values and energy efficiencies in the glass that we're selecting. So all of those things are, at this stage of a project are still being finessed and worked on and thought through. But I know that we'll be able to do that, right? And create this building just because it is a fitness wellness center, right? That's giving back to the community. That this thing has to do that all the way through. It's not just in words. It's just not in like image or design. It's like the things that you don't see, but you know, we know that we have to do well. So.
And I think we have Jackie up next.
Yeah, hi, Jason. I just wanted to also echo what everyone else said and commend you on the ambition of your design. And I know you will, you know, focus hard on those details, which will be very complicated to execute. And it's just really doing it, you know, a disservice just to call it a wellness center. I think that the program is just so unique. You know, it's what a great program. So congratulations to the whole team for bringing this to 47th Street.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. And I think that's one thing, like we keep calling it a wellness center, but yeah, we're like, I feel like there should be more words.
Oh, it's so much more. It's
beyond the
phenomenal program.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions from the committee? If not, I think we will go ahead and close discussion on this item and move on to the second item. All right. So whoever is in charge of running that presentation, please go ahead and set it up. Again, to the applicant team, please clearly state your name and your relation to the project prior to speaking. You will have 20 minutes to present your proposal. Committee members, please hold your comments and questions until after each presentation. The next item is located at 2908 to 2926 East 79th Street and 7901 to 7933 South Exchange Avenue in the 7th Ward. Thrive Exchange is a mixed-use project selected as the winning proposal from the South Shore Invest Southwest RFP. Phase 1 of Thrive Exchange will consist of 43 affordable residential units and a 6-story building with a ground floor retail space. The project is transit-oriented, consistent with the city's ETOD priorities, located adjacent to a metro stop and along the heavily used 79th Street CTA bus line. Any committee members that are associated with this project, please recuse yourself at this time and for the duration of review and discussion for this project.
Okay, so the next is the remnant.
That said, please proceed with the presentation. And again, state your name prior to speaking. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tanya Kadakia. I'm the Director of Housing Investments with DL3 Realty Advisors. I'm very pleased to be presenting Thrive Exchange South Residential Apartments. The idea of Thrive Exchange South is to bring our brand of luxury workforce affordable housing to the area. With apartments at 60% of the area median income. We'll have neighborhood housing services on site offering credit and home ownership services for the residents and for the broader community. As mentioned, it's ETOD, consistent with the mayor's priorities and the department's priorities. And I want to emphasize that the project is part of a larger 4 corners strategy to really make the biggest possible impact on this site, including a planned housing project development on the north side of the street, which would have a like number of units, an award-winning health facility immediately to the south in a renovated historic building, some condominiums on the west side of the street, and the repositioning and refurbishment and retenanting of a troubled strip mall immediately to the southwest side of this street. Next slide. We have worked extensively with the community in the Alderman's office on the program for the project. And although we can't actually bring a grocery store to the site, food was definitely a priority of the community. And I'm working actively right now with a provider of like a coffee and co-working concept, which would have sandwiches and that kind of thing. And now I turn it over to Ku Architecture, who did this gorgeous site plan and housing project.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashlyn Williams, and I am with Ku. And I'm also joined on the call by Dan Rappel, a principal at Ku. And I will be taking you through the rest of the design slides to talk about the project. So as Tanya said, this is the site and the overall view. We'll be discussing the south building here on the left side of your screen today. And generally, as she mentioned, the program design really focuses on drawing and capitalizing on the adjacent sort of assets in the community, and that's the metro stop, which is less than 200 feet away from our site, and then the historic Ringer building immediately adjacent. The project focuses on a mix of residential, community, and retail programming at a variety of scales. As we touched on in the slide before, it is meant to be paired with this companion building on the north site for a variety of density and scales to really bring a dynamic change to the neighborhood. As an RFP respondent or an Invest Southwest respondent, we were adhering to all of the design guidelines and design excellence principles as we move through each design decision. To give you a sense of where we are, the site is located on the border of South Chicago and South Shore neighborhoods. And we are sort of minutes from Lakeshore Drive and east of the Chicago Skyway. By commute, car and Metro, we're about 30 minutes to the loop. So it is really ideally suited for transit and bringing sort of drawing new residents to the neighborhood. Zooming in a little further, you'll see our site here. It's made of two parcels, really. The southwest corner of the intersection is the site that was identified in the RFP. And then this sort of odd-shaped site or land mass that we're addressing here is in the currently unused Metro right-of-way. And in order to sort of like maximize the site, we were able to work out use of that to provide parking and site access. Wrong way. And to get into some site context, here we are on 79th, looking west across the tracks. And so our site will be here in the left side of the image. Here we are on Exchange, looking northwest. And you can see the Ringer building immediately adjacent and the existing barbershop building across the street. Excuse me. Down here, looking north on Exchange, you can see this is the troubled commercial strip that Tanya spoke to previously, immediately across the street. And this is the view down in this lower right-hand image from 80th. And this is where we will be accessing the site via car. So we're near this Metro facility and right off of the tracks. And just to give you a sense of the site in aerial, the larger Four Corners concept, these are the condos, the for sale units that Tanya mentioned. Across the street is where we'll have the Thrive Exchange North residential project. We've had the redeveloped commercial strip. We are adjacent to or just up from a church that is existing. And here we are, the pink building is again, our site that we'll be discussing today. Taking it back sort of to the beginning and the massing options that we discussed during the RFP, as the RFP addressed the north and south sites, so we were really considering them in pairs. And so here we looked at a greater density on the south side and lower rise buildings on the north side. Here we've got it paired with the lower density option on the south side and the greater density on the north side. And what we settled on is this mid-rise density that responds to some adjacent context on increasing the overall scale of the buildings, but still sort of provides space for this plaza and the open area on the exchange side of the site. We felt that that was the best balance in keeping with the scale of the neighborhood while increasing the density and activation of the intersection. And sort of speaking a little bit more to those moments, we've got our retail plaza and ground floor retail and residential facing the Metro and sort of the bulk of the intersection. And then there's a tenant amenity deck that also overlooks this area. And additionally, part of our work will be sort of expanding the sidewalk a little bit and providing a safer and more engaging pedestrian experience, because it is a difficult and sort of high traffic intersection. And we'll get into some renderings rather. So this is a zoom of the rendering we saw previously, sort of really showing how engaging the plaza and this retail at the street level will be on this currently really underutilized site. Here we are looking across the tracks. That's similar. This is a similar view to the one we saw in the site context images, to give you a sense of the scale of the plaza versus the tenant amenity deck, and then these balconies. So you're getting a lot more activation and engagement between the residents and the visitors to the area. And here we are looking north from Exchange. And so you'll get a sense of the building and its relationship to the Ringer building. In plan, we'll see a little bit better later how the building is situated on the site. It really gives the facade of the Ringer building room and sort of respects its significance as a historic building, while also maximizing the site and giving space for the sort of pocket park on the front side to just provide a little bit of relief at the street level. And here we are at the plaza that is on the Metro side. And it's proposed as a plaza to sort of go along with these retail uses and the food uses. So there will be outdoor dining. There's a low stage, so that potentially there's for community music events or any other sort of presentation can take place here, and it just really becomes a moment and a node for area residents and visitors from the Metro or surrounding neighborhoods to take part in the development. Here we are looking at the site plan and sort of the overall landscape design elements. So something that we were looking at as part of the overall Four Corners concept is also addressing the sort of dangers, the pedestrian experience. As I mentioned, it's a difficult corner. There's a lot going on. The southbound lane of Exchange is offset. And so there's a lot of, and it's currently a very wide intersection. So this design proposes sort of extending the sidewalks. And while that's not part of this fully part of this current project, the integrally colored concrete plays into the angles of the building. We've got our plaza where we are, again, speaking to really bringing people and activity and engagement to that site and sort of signifying to Metro users that there's something going on here. On the west side of the building, we have this sort of pocket park that will be available for residents. So yeah, it's really a sort of like a holistic approach to developing the site. We've really increased the amount of sidewalk planters and landscape planting to again, just really increase the desirability of being a pedestrian in this area.
Hey, Ashlyn, we have about 10 minutes left.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks.
And these are some precedent images that, and while we haven't gone for something quite as robust or like brightly colored as this part of the design moves forward, it will be something that we continue to work with and engage with the community on to sort of provide something that reflects the new identity that we're bringing to the corner. And here we are with some precedent images to give you a sense of the context or the look and feel of these outside spaces that we're going to be bringing to the intersection. And so here on our site, to talk about the site access, The primary residential entrance is here. And then we'll have multiple retail entrances around the community plaza and the front side of the building. There'll also be rear tenant access off of the parking lot and a direct bike room access off of the South Exchange. So residents can come directly from the street without coming through the building with their bikes. And then looking inside, you'll see the layout, how we have the retail, again, really facing and prioritized on the most public facing corner. And then the remainder of the building is dedicated to the management offices and resident support, mailroom, the bike room. There is a leasable office space here. Currently, that's looking to be the NHS offices, which is part of the home ownership and programming that Tanya spoke to previously. And there's also a flex space that is available for public use, but then sort of classes that the NHS might offer. It opens right onto the plaza. It's just another sort of amenity that will provide further engagement to the neighborhood and the building. Moving up, we'll have the residential floors. On level 2, we have the fitness room and a tenant lounge that open up onto that amenity deck that I mentioned earlier. And then the rest of the floor and the upper floors are dedicated to residential units. There are about 4 studio units, and then the rest of the units are split pretty evenly between 1 and 2 bedroom units. Speaking to the materiality of the building, we really drew from the area context and specifically the Ringer building, because obviously the adjacency is really important and we want to complement it. So we're looking at a warm brick mix and accents of copper look metal panel at the windows and at the lower recessed areas. And that's really sort of drawing directly from the brick buildings in the area. Here we're looking at the facade again, and you can see really directly how these arched openings, the design decision was made to sort of draw from the arched openings and refer back to the Ringer building. Here's the building elevation from the plaza side. And again, we're just getting a sense of that. The tenant amenity deck, this is the rear parking lot facing and tenant access to the building. And I apologize, I'm going to breeze through, and then I realized we must have missed a slide because I missed a site plan to go through the site access. Here we're looking at the site section, and the primary structural frame is post-tension concrete, and then we have a fairly robust building envelope that is stud frame and brick veneer, but it is pulled from, designed with the high performance in mind. And we're looking at this other section, and just in the other direction, here you'll see that tenant lounge opening right onto the roof deck, and we're above the flex space. And overall, the project is going to be designed to meet enterprise green communities. It's going to be certified, and that is just part, and that is the kind of major step in our overall plan to comply with the Sustainable Development Policy. And if you'll excuse me while I circle back, because I do want to address the site plan. Here we are. I didn't realize it skipped over this one. So here is the larger site plan. You'll see here our site access off of 80th Street, and we're providing about 45 spaces. And that is, we're looking at providing minimum like 0.75 spaces per unit. That is pretty much what the market research is suggesting that we need for these for this space. And excuse me, in addition to that, excuse me. our access out the 80th Street is far from the sort of building entrance. But that said, it does do a lot to relieve the burden of traffic and driveway traffic on an already sort of heavily taxed intersection. So it really provides a solution to a problem that exists here currently. There are a lot of existing traffic issues. And with that, I'm going to head back to the end and open it up for questions.
Thanks, Ashlyn. So at this time, I'd like to ask any committee members who, oh, sorry. Before, all right. For the remaining committee members, please take a moment to review any comments received from the public, which we have not. But yeah, we can go ahead and the floor is open for discussion.
I can go first if you guys want me to.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Ashlyn. That was a really good presentation, very thorough. And Tanya also, very exciting project. And I think the thing I like the most about this project is really the massing. If you go to the site plan, zoomed out so you can see the neighborhood site plan. Yeah, in this you can start to see the it's very interesting the way that the two triangular corners kind of point to each other right next to the metro station and then the 6-story mixed use. So it creates this really interesting 3-dimensional experience, I think, right around there at South Exchange and at 79th there. So I think that's really working very, very well. And I really like the project overall. You guys have done a great job. And what I want to say about it, I think really is more to do with landscape architecture and tree planting and green space. Just because again, I think this view is very, very exciting. Just to know that like the trees coverage is going to be super important going forward with our changing climate, and wondering if there's a way to get more permeable earth surface, more buffer somehow, something to make it really comfortable in these hot days. We've had such a nice summer this year, but in the future it's going to be more and more absorbing in all these hard surfaces, and to make sure that the plants are able to get rainwater onto them. So I'm not sure why everything had to be in planters, maybe to get more space that's usable, which is also important. But I'm just wondering if there's any ideas that you guys might have to increase the comfort through and just the tree cover, the urban canopy for the project.
Right, definitely. I think that that's definitely something to consider, because we really don't have a lot of large scale trees and sort of like shade providing trees, especially in the site plaza area. So as we continue to develop the design and getting some ground level, taking some stuff out of planters and giving a softer edge to some of these things is certainly something to look at, because that really would provide a probably better performance and a more positive experience.
Yeah, or if you go to the site plan, and again, like I think going back one to the, is that landscape buffer, the limit of the work is the curved line, is that right?
Yes.
So even just having trees that are not in pots. One thing that we did recently at our own office is we took out squares of concrete sidewalk on either side of the tree so it could get more absorption and be healthier. And the tree like got happier overnight, it seemed like. And it's, you know, it's really about getting true rain and just, you know, earth around the tree. So I was just wondering, like, that could be an area that could really be
Expanded and
expanded,
much more natural. Yes, absolutely.
And it will help to shade the parking, which will then cool that down. And just thinking about the overall comfort in general for the overall city urban forest canopy that we're trying to make more expanded and equitable throughout the city.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree. That's something we will keep in mind moving forward and look for some opportunities to make more of those moments happen.
Thanks. I believe Andre, I see your hand up.
Excellent project. I'm sure you've heard all the accolades on the design and the way you've approached this before. Don't need to repeat it. Just anxious to see this move forward. I do have a small detail question related to your floor plan. I believe you had flex space identified.
Yes.
And didn't know if that, you know, just under 1,000 square feet would be something that you would see as future retail, or if that would be flex that would be meant for another use for the building itself.
Honestly, it's a kind of a work in progress, Andre. We are seriously considering using this as sort of a quasi-public amenity space because it is separated from the rest of the building. And one of the things that the community was looking for was some kind of gathering space. However, we do have to be just cautious to keep things kind of insulated and separated as well from, you know, so I think what I want to say is that we will work with our management company to kind of make that call when we're a little bit further down the road with them to decide if what they feel is going to function appropriately. And if they basically tell us we really think that this is not a great idea to have as quite as open of a space, I think we would add another retail space that would be a different way of serving the community.
Thank you.
All right, Maria, I believe you're next.
Thank you. I want to echo the congratulations on a fantastic project, and I think we all appreciate the gesture of recognizing both the corner and the proximity of the landmark. It's really, really sensitive and smart move. So bravo, Ashley, and to your entire team.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Beautiful drawings too. We were wondering if you go back to the extended plan, we're looking at the possibility of adding more trees, no? And we were wondering if it will be possible to move the parking lot a little bit to the south to get that walkway along that takes you to the building, be a little bit wider. And like a more sort of kind of clear connection towards that square there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were wondering if in any of these spaces you can get a line of trees, whether it's along the parking or along the buffer, just to kind of increase the tree canopy.
Let me just, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished there.
Oh, just one another idea, Tanya, and I'm sure you guys have looked at this much more than we have, but the square in front of the market, I believe, which looks so vibrant and exciting and all that. You know, perhaps there is an opportunity there to kind of have a more sort of continuous and space, perhaps with less raised tree pits, and maybe there are other solutions instead of fencing, something that can make the gesture of the diagonal in the corner feel a lot more cohesive and open and connective, right? And with that will come the opportunity to plant more trees, as Jeannie was saying. So those were the ideas there. We're just really trying to extend the tree canopy, allow the lines of trees to build that continuity, no?
Right.
And provide sort of a more cleaner access for pedestrians, whether they are coming from the corner or from the parking lot, if that makes sense.
So one comment I want to make is that we do have to work kind of within the constraints of Metra, and they've got a 15-foot setback from the track. And also that kind of big, funny square at the bottom there, that's their required setback against that Metra storage building. They have big, heavy equipment in there that they need to get out and move around. So, you know, because honestly, we would have liked to have been able to even, you know, potentially extend the amount of parking. But that's why that's set up the way it is. Also, I would mention, I mean, we will and continue to work closely with Site Design, who's the landscape architect on this as well. You know, we certainly want to have trees as much as possible and not necessarily in little tiny tree pits. I totally agree with you. You know, as much as we can organize that. So, you know, certainly well taken, and we agree.
We feel like the architecture is doing such a gesture to, like, you know, that the landscapes just kind of had to follow that open with, like.
Yeah, there's definitely an opportunity to reinforce what we're doing with the architecture in the landscape. And while we're adding the tree canopy elements that you're speaking to.
I think, Eleanor, you're next.
Hi everyone. I have to echo everyone's discussion about the building and the energy that you're bringing to this corner, to the site, but also to commend you on preserving the historic building and even pulling back the new construction so that more of the corner of that building is red, and that in turn helped you step down the scale of the building to the neighborhood. So I appreciate the sensitivity of the design. I also wanted to mention that in my day job, I was in the neighborhood with the community group, and they conveyed such enthusiasm for this project. I was really looking forward to your presentation and to hearing this today. And I think this is going to be a game changer starting down the whole corridor, which I'm sure DPD is hoping for, but I did get that sense from the community too. So anyways, just kudos on the project.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for saying that. I'm very excited to hear you say that, not coming from, you know, something that we did directly.
All right.
Can I jump in, Josh? So just to piggyback on the comments of the building, I think we focused a lot on the site, but just some real strong points about the building. And I think your selection of brick, the Emperor brick, is really a surprising move. And I think the added texture and the level of detail you're really giving to this block is really wonderful. And I hope as you go through VE, you will fight as hard as you can to keep that brick. I think that adds a huge element to this building and makes it even more of a stronger building and a start for the future developments. So great selection on that, and please fight for that. Fight to keep that masonry in. I love it, and I think everyone else will love it too. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Are there any other comments from committee members? All right, if not, then I believe we will go ahead and conclude this review. Before we adjourn, on behalf of DPD, thank you again for all of your critical thinking and thoughtful comments on these two important projects. The meeting will now come to a close. Thank you for attending and sharing your thoughts. We hope you'll come back soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.